Hey guys, this is James and this is Garrett, and we are bringing you another Inbetweenisode. You might recognize this beautiful background bag here. We are in Garrett's Tea Cavern. And what tea are we drinking today?
So we are drinking the Xiaguan. It's a 2.0, and we got it from MXT on Taobao. It's we're referring to it as the T004 2.0, which is kind of like the translated version of this tea. Yeah. So it's supposedly, I learned about this tea from Toby, so thank you, Toby. It's supposedly a famous tea on the forum somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Some people were talking about it. It was all in Chinese, so of course we don't really know what people were saying.
Right.
But anyways, it ended up on our radar. It was something like $13 or something for a tool. So Garrett and I decided to split a tool, see how it is, and so far, so good, I'd say.
Yeah.
So I've written a lot about how to buy teas from Taobao and MXT. So check those things out. We're not going to talk about those things today. We're going to talk about the tea.
Okay. Yeah. So we've done a rinse off camera here, and we're just going to get right into it.
Yep. So is this tool, Xiaguan has sort of a reputation for making like super compact, fairly smoky tools. Does this sort of fit that image in your opinion?
I would say on the super compact side, yes, but smoky, no. I've got a lot of good even sessions where there's not a whole lot of that nasty kind of barbecue that you can get off a lot of Xiaguan stuff, and I would say that this is much more smoother. Even sometimes I get a little bit of fruit off the beginnings, initial steeps from this one. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And would you say that has come about from its aging, or would you say that's more a product of just like the material that was in the tool originally?
I would say it's a product of the material that kind of originally was there.
It's maybe a little smoky to start off with than a Xiaguan tool.
Right.
And then the age certainly doesn't hurt that aspect. So,
right.
Yeah. And so we have already rinsed the tea off the camera. So if you guys are wondering if we are about to drink the rinse right now, the answer is no. That has already happened. Mm-hmm. The liqueur looks pretty dark, and looking at the thing, it looks like we're looking at a lot of fairly chopped up material, which is pretty much par for the course for a big factory tool like this.
Right, typical.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Right. Cheers, guys. It's pretty strong right off the bat, I gotta say.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm getting a little bit of astringency, but there's this nice viscosity to it, which kind of is nice. It makes me hopeful to like the next steeps and stuff. But I would definitely probably just keep it light for this next one. And
I think people that have brewed these before will know that you got to really pay attention to these early brews because you can definitely overdo it. So this sort of has, I think it's fairly characteristic for Xiaguan so far. It's sort of like strong, pungent, floral almost, a little smoky, not too much.
Right.
Definitely astringent.
Right.
And so this tea was also made by Feitai, which is, a lot of you probably already know, it's usually signified with an FT on the productions, and usually they're a little bit better than your average Xiaguan productions. Not always the case, but it's sort of a, I don't know what the right way to describe it. It's sort of like a label that presses on Xiaguan some of the times, depending on the year. So, yeah.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys. Nice. I get a little bit of this floral that reminds me, it's less like geranium or like just basic flower bouquet floral, but more vanilla-esque. So kind of like this sweetness that's bounced with it. It's really, I like it.
Nice. I've actually been brewing this tea most frequently in one of my clay vessels that pours pretty fast. I think the pouring fast is pretty important for tea, not to overdo a tea like this.
Right.
And I think that sort of moved the register of notes down and sort of gave it a more fruitier. So I'm actually getting comparatively more of higher notes, more floralness out of this session.
Nice.
Again, I agree with what Garrett was saying. It's like nice, strong, and oily. So you could see that this sort of has a lot of punchiness that could allow it to age for quite a bit longer.
Right. Yeah. I would say that this one was. We recently just had a bunch of these, like a sampling from MX, a sampling of kind of semi-aged pu'erhs from other vendors as well, and I would say this one is probably up there on my favorites in terms of available flavors, or like available drinking experience right now. Like it's like not too rough where I'm like, well, maybe in the future it'll like age into something better. I'm like, this one, it's good now, and I think it has enough strength to be even better later. Mm-hmm. Better later, yeah. Yeah,
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it has a relatively agreeable price for the age, certainly. And you can see that Garrett is continuing to keep the steeps very short, probably pretty essential to prevent this tea from getting too rough. That aroma is very strong. Getting a little more fruit off of that aroma, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have a lot of dust in yours.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to kind of strain it with my lips or something like that. Yeah.
Really burly tea. I would say that people, this might appeal more to the whiskey drinkers than the oolong drinkers.
Right, yeah. Right. Definitely somebody who likes a little more punch can sit with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
What do you think of the storage of this tea? Do you find it on the wet end, on the dry end? What are your thoughts?
I would say that maybe there's a little bit of wet storage in this one, just because it's not as aggressive as what I've had from this factory in the past in terms of like 2.0s and 2.0s with this sort of compression. So it makes me think that it was exposed to a little bit of moisture, but it's not to the extent where like I'm getting a ton of like earthiness, mushroominess profiles that I would normally associate with something that's been aged in like Hong Kong or Taiwan. So I would say probably closer, like it's neutral for me. Like it's hard for me to say for sure, but I'm leaning towards like a little bit of wet.
Yeah, I'd agree, and I think a tea like this could really use that extra wet storage if we're being 100% honest. If anyone has stored one of these tools like 13 years pretty dryly, it'd probably be pretty nasty, to be honest. It'd be just really, really rough unless you're into sort of those super strong brews. Like this, for me, is plenty of strength. I agree with Garrett that the storage has been... I mean, there's a lot of different interactions because it's so compact. It's not going to be quite as impacted by humid storage as something that might be a little bit looser, compressed. So I would say this tea, the storage suits the tea well, in the sense that it's somewhat humid, but the tea is so compact that it sort of evens itself out in the long run.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So here we are, steep number 4, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
No, it still has that kind of like viscosity to it, that thickness that I kind of commented on initially in that first steep, which I find real nice. Like, I know a lot of teas that at this point would be like starting to show their kind of like, hey, I'm just a factory tea from like probably plantation material, but this is still in there.
Yeah, start to get a little rougher, but this is sticking around.
Sticking around, yes.
And so, Garrett, have you had this tea brewed in different ways? Like, have you brewed this tea in clay before?
I've had this tea in clay, I think with you actually, a couple times, and I would say that it does benefit from being in kind of a hotter, more like condensed environment. I'm choosing to brew it in a Xiaguan right now just because it allows me to have a little more control over the steeps. I can kind of control and gyrate the leaves in these later steeps to make sure everything's breaking up. Because there was like kind of like a nice, one of those nice strong like little like compressed pieces that were in there, and I wanted to just make sure that I'm still getting to all those leaves that are at the core of that, as well as all this kind of like lighter dusty stuff that you can get with highly compressed teas that we certainly have here.
So generally speaking, you have been brewing this in the Xiaguan, is that right?
Yeah. So that's the main place where I've been brewing it right now, just so I can have that control. Cool.
Yeah, so we may wrap it up at this steep. The tea is still going very much strong. Garrett hit that for a little bit longer time, but the water may have cooled down slightly, so looks about right. Still brewing up a pretty healthy orangish color. It's hard to tell with the tea-stained Pyrex sometimes.
Oh, yes.
Don't worry, I have that problem at home as well.
Right.
Cheers. A little fruitier, a little woodier on this one.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah, I get that, like pine wood kind of.
It's actually starting to remind me a little bit more of my session from yesterday that I did in clay.
Okay.
The tea is really quite strong. I think it's not for the faint of heart, the people that might like your dainty oolongs or something like that.
Right.
So I can feel the caffeine, I would say. I wouldn't call it quite chi. But I can feel myself getting energized from this tea.
Right,
So sort of a morning tea for me, at least. Certainly also not something you'd want to have on a empty stomach.
Of course, yeah. It's definitely, like, I can feel the strength in my foot's, like, just, like, shaking right now because, like, of that caffeine, which is something that happens for me when I get especially wired. But
and mind you, we are having 5 grams split across 2 people. So this tea is strong, which I consider to be an asset for the most part.
Right. It's pretty good.
Yeah, so Garrett, we are working on a report on MXT, is that right?
That is correct, yeah.
So basically Garrett and I, he had mentioned that we had split a bunch of samples, so we have been working through those and have reviewed a bunch of them, put our tasting notes online, so go check that out at TeaDB.org. Yeah, where can people find you, Garrett? Your Instagram?
Yeah, Instagram's probably the best place for me right now, and related to like my tea explorations. Is like water, all one word.
Yeah. Garrett has a not so smartphone, so you're not the most active person on Instagram,
right?
But you might get there at some point.
It's a matter of time, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And check out the previous episodes with Garrett as well. I think there's some really interesting thoughts and stuff on storage, I'm looking at Garrett's Pu'erh just to my right over here, and so you could learn a little bit about how Garrett stores his tea, teas that he has drank before,
Right.
And whatnot. So thank you, Garrett, for appearing.
Yeah,
and
thanks for having me.
Yeah, and look for him on the next episode. We're going to be doing something a little bit different. So cheers, guys.
Cheers.